Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking with us through the end of the day. This is our last session of the 2023 Penn Career Champions Conference. Before we get started with our final conversation of the day, I want to give a huge shout out to my colleague, Joseph. If you've been watching today, you saw a lot of Joseph. He is the driving force behind today's conference. He did a lot of presentations and a lot of moderating. And so I want to thank him and all of my colleagues who did amazing presentations today. If there are any that you missed, they have all been recorded, and we will be getting them up on the Career Services YouTube and on the Career Services website as soon as possible. So we are really excited to share those with you, and we're really excited to have this final conversation today. If you were with me at the beginning of the conference this morning, I talked very briefly about Penn's plans for a Career Champions program, and we're going to talk today with our friend David about the idea of career everywhere and Career Champions programs, what that means broadly in higher education, and what our plans are here at Penn. And Joseph and I will be sharing a little preview of that at the end. So I do want to introduce my friend, my partner in career everywhereness. This is David Kozak from UConnect. David, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is David Kozak. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called UConnect. We're based in Cambridge, but virtual and remote, as many companies are. We started the company to help colleges and universities integrate career exploration and planning into every aspect of the student experience. We've been doing it for about 10 years. We work with 300 plus colleges and universities, and Penn was one of the early adopters. So very happy to be here with Michael and Barbara and the team, and to share a little bit more about our thinking behind Career Everywhere.
We're so appreciative of you being here. So particularly for the folks who may have missed my presentation this morning, David, in your mind, what does Career Everywhere mean?
To me and to us, Career Everywhere is, sort of meeting students where they're at, right? It's sort of bringing bringing career exploration and planning beyond the four walls of the Career Center and integrating it into all aspects of the campus culture and all aspects of the student experience, right? So, essentially whoever students are engaging with organically before, during, and after, their college experience, that they are having career conversations, having conversations about, professional development and different, opportunities to launch meaningful, purposeful, and fulfilling careers.
I think you were the first person I ever heard use the term Career Everywhere, and certainly it's a big part of UConnect's brand identity. But to me, it's really defining something that has always existed, which is there absolutely is a career center on every campus, and people are taking advantage of that. But it's not the only place that where students are engaging in career conversations. They're talking with their friends, with staff, with faculty. When I look back on my own college experience, I'm one of those kids. I think I went to the career service office once and had like a quick resume review, but I was very close with my work study supervisor. He was a real role model for me in terms of like how to be a professional, and taught me a lot. And we discussed what my plans for graduation were, and he introduced me to other people and was a real networking touchstone for me too. So it was so vital to me that was happening, and it was happening outside of the career office. So now, as a career service professional, we really want to acknowledge that this is organically happening everywhere on campus, as you said, and we want to give the folks that are having those kinds of conversations the tools that they need to really support their students.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think Career Everywhere is also the sort of mark of a mark of awareness from the career office that these conversations are happening everywhere, and not only in their office. And it's also the mark of a sort of concerted effort to coordinate um, between career services and faculty and staff and all the other influencers in a student's experience, to make sure that they're intentional in guiding students to launch and advance their careers. So we talk a lot about sort of making sure students are meaningfully engaged in career exploration and planning, and without that sort of intentionality to coordinate efforts, I think it just becomes sort of random, and ends up being sort of chalked up to luck, whether a student really has some of those relationships with a work study colleague or a mentor, or a faculty member who can guide them in the right direction, and you want it to go well beyond luck. So yeah.
I saw Joseph put a great question in the chat, and it was something I was going to ask you. He asked the audience who were their career champions when they were going through college. So David, who was that for you?
So that was my sister. And that sort of experience really was a large part of what motivated me to launch UConnect. Very short story is my sister's 10 years older than me. She launched a career in finance on Wall Street for an investment bank called Merrill Lynch. When she graduated college, I was still in middle school at the time, but her and I have always been very close, and I learned a lot about the financial services industry from her. And when I went to college, I knew exactly what I thought I wanted to do, which was work in finance. And I was very intentional in all of my engagement as a result of that. And so I was visiting career services early. I was, I was taking the right classes. I was joining, finance student clubs. I was going on trips to New York City to visit alums. I was doing all those things because I knew that I wanted to work in finance, and that was largely because of, the influence that my sister had on me. And so, yeah, I mean, that was that sort of inspiration, that vision, I think, is so important to students when they find something that really resonates with them and they get passionate about it. The rest just falls into place. But it's that early exposure that's so critical.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your mind, what are some of the ways that you think that the faculty and staff here at Penn can meaningfully engage in career conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I think asking questions of students that they work with about career. I think leaning into the conversation. I think it's important not to just defer to career services. I think it's easy to be like, oh, you should talk to career services, but I think the sort of better approach, and probably the better experience for students, is to sort of combine all the great foundational work that career services has done with your unique perspective and experiences and advice as somebody who's presumably gone through a portion of their career, has some perspective, and knows that student well, in a lot of cases better than the career center team knows
Totally.
that. So sort of combining what about that student, your perspectives, and then of course everything that the career center is doing to facilitate career pathways, from events and programs to the technologies that they're offering to coaching and things like that. Being able to speak to those services, that combination is great of all those things.
I wonder if you have any thoughts. Sometimes here in career services, we feel a tension between the academic side and the career services, the professional development side, and some people believing that students really are here to learn. We shouldn't distract them with on-campus recruiting and information sessions. They should be really just growing their minds and expanding their horizons. And then when it's time to go, that's when it's time to think about that. Now, I think probably everybody in the audience realizes that's not the way the world works in general. These students are being recruited by employers very early in their college career. So what is your answer to that, other than, well, that's not the way the world works? Do you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has an opinion. The North Star is what students, want,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think just trying to remove any bias that you might have and thinking about, what do the students actually want themselves and what is in their best interest. Um, I think when you said, go through their academic experience and then think about career after, it just feels really backwards to me, right? Like, I think in an ideal world, a student has a vision for potential career pathways and then leverages their academic experience to learn skills, build network, get experiences to determine, right, whether those are the best pathways, which one might rise to the top and put them in a position to be successful, as opposed to the other way around, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think thinking about students as the North Star and removing, try to remove any biases that you might have. If all sort of, higher education did that, I think we'd be in a really great place.
I always go and use myself as an example because I was a theater major, and here I am, a senior associate director in a career services office at Penn. So,
Yeah.
what's the connection there? And on the surface, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I rely on the things that I learned in my theater degree all the time. I'm comfortable hosting something like this. I have the CS radio podcast that we do, so all of my sort of actory skills have come into play. And of course, I was very lucky when I interviewed, because I was interviewing with really skilled career services workers. They posed questions that allowed me to say, oh, well, because I've been doing this in the theater, I'm really good at this. I can direct a show, I can organize a career fair, because there are sort of tangible things that are the same. I have to book a space, I have to advertise it, so I brought all of that to my first role, and it's been a very happy 20 years. We got a question in the chat here. How can the Career Everywhere approach support underserved populations?
It's a good question. Just going back to what you were just talking about, I think it is also really important not to sort of too strongly link major to career, right? Like, like the sort of translatable skills that you can learn in a theater as a theater major or philosophy major, could translate to a lot of different careers, and they may not be obvious, but I think that in my experience has been, a limiting factor where somebody's, in a particular major and there's recommendations about what careers to pursue just because they're in that major, right? There's a lot, beyond the surface that I think matters in that decision and matters in the, context of exploration. So I'm glad you told that story. And, I think it's really important. You're 19, 20, 21 years old, right? You have
That's exactly right.
your whole life ahead of you. And so I don't think like that, that major it should be, disproportionately influencing what you do for the rest of your career. I think the question about underserved students is also really important. And, I think from our perspective, Career Everywhere, implemented well, can have potentially even more impact on historically underrepresented populations than more traditional populations. I think, depending on the type of student, their background, their circumstances, sometimes those students are less likely to go and seek advice from a career office, or they're less likely to feel confident going into a career office and looking for the right resources, looking for the right support. And so it's really important that the people that they organically engage with every day, can talk to them about different career paths, hopefully broaden their vision of what career paths might be relevant for them, and then, give them the confidence to go and leverage the tools and resources and programs that are available to help them, along their journey. And, sometimes there's also limitations. There's adult learners who barely come onto campus. There's low income students who have to go to class, who have to go to work after class and don't have the sort of luxury of being able to go to, the career office, or, go to events and career fairs. There's student athletes even, oftentimes not looked at as underrepresented, but, you gotta go to practice every day after class. You got to travel for games and tournaments and things like that. Not everybody can, make the regular programming and the regular office hours that are available out of the career center. So career everywhere becomes, even more important in those cases. And yeah, it's sort of really important to put yourself in the shoes of those populations, and what are the limiting factors to engagement, and how can we sort of, help overcome those.
I think that's exactly right. And I think it goes back to the very first thing you said, which is career everywhere is meeting students where they are. And sometimes literally, like,
Literally, yeah.
career services is not a place where students are hanging out. They could.
Yeah.
I wish they would. It would be great. But, they're hanging out in the cultural centers. They're hanging out at the LGBT center, at McCoo, at La Casa Latina, at Patch. The theater kids are hanging out at Platt Performing Arts House. So we know they've got really great relationship with our colleagues there, sometimes very deep and personal relationships. They would feel much more comfortable having a conversation there. Even if a trusted staff member said, you should go talk to Michael in career services about that. For many reasons, they may or may not want to do that, or feel comfortable do that, or have the time to do that, as you said. And so this is a way that we're thinking about, I trust my colleagues in other places. And so what tools can I help give them so that they feel comfortable having those conversations? I see a question from Barb in the audience, and it dovetails nicely into something else you said, which is about when career champion programs are implemented well. Barb asks, can you point to specific things that schools that are doing career everywhere programming are doing well?
Can you point to specific things that schools doing career well do? I think communication. That's what comes to mind first. I mean, career services is a unique function in that almost every single day there are new connections, new opportunities, new events and programs, new resources that can be relevant for a wide range of students. And so I think the schools, from my experience, I think the schools that do that are most effective in implementing a career everywhere strategy over-index on communication. They have personalized communication to the different influencers or career champions, or whatever you want to call them, in the ecosystem, and they're able to get the relevant information in a timely fashion to the right people to spread the word and make sure that students know about all these opportunities. So there's a good story of our friends at the University of Connecticut. They recruited a new president last year, and he was sort of going out to do his inaugural speech to the community. He had not met with anybody in career services before this happened, but during his speech, he starts talking about historical outcomes, career outcomes, and the sort of first destination data that the career center was sharing. And afterwards, Jim asked his assistant director, how did he know all that? And he said, well, the president's chief of staff is a career champion. She gets newsletters weekly about what's going on in the career center. So, unbeknownst to them, he had some really, specific insights about what career services was doing and their impact. And, I think that's the biggest element of scale for career offices too, right? Like making sure that people are evangelizing your resources, talking about your work when you're not around. That is a beautiful picture of scale. So oftentimes career offices are understaffed, and just have limited capacity. So thinking about career everywhere from a career services office perspective as an element of scale is also quite powerful.
You mentioned University of Connecticut. This morning, I gave a presentation where I did a short case study on 3 schools that are doing this and doing this well, Connecticut being one, Duke being the other, and University of Miami being one. Do you have other examples, places that you think that are doing unique things, things that we might want to be thinking about here at Penn?
Those are good ones. There's a couple, shameless plug, on our website, gouconnect.com. There's a sort of career everywhere part of the website that shares some case studies and some examples of schools that are doing it well. I think University of Washington has done a really, really good job. They have a unbelievable executive director, Brianna Randall, who's been very sort of intentionally implementing career everywhere for several years. I think Denison College also comes to mind, small liberal arts college. Also, I think doing a really good job of truly integrating career planning and career pathways into the culture at Denison. And I think in both of those cases, a big sort of part of the ability to implement the strategy is buy-in from leadership, right? At Denison, it was very conscious that there at a point wasn't much of any sort of integration of career into the culture, and it was sort of over-indexed on on other aspects of the student experience, and found that students weren't necessarily well prepared when they were, ready for graduation. And so they made this very intentional effort. They have great leadership there and have done a really good job of changing the culture accordingly. So in addition to the 3 that you suggested, I think those are 2 great ones.
Well, since we're doing a little shameless plugging, let's talk a little bit about UConnect, what it is. I can talk a bit how we're using it here at Penn and how we're going to use it to springboard into this next phase of our own journey.
Yeah, totally. So UConnect is the creator of the first all-in-one virtual career center, which is really, simply put, designed to improve access to all of the sort of resources, data, and information that the Career Center offers. I think we find that faculty, staff, and these other influencers in a student's experience want to help students think about career paths, want to provide their perspective, and want to provide their guidance. Don't have time to reinvent the wheel, and I think oftentimes don't know enough about what the career office does and what they offer to be able to sort of effectively guide students. So the Virtual Career Center is really designed to make sure that anybody in and around the Penn community has access to everything the career office does, can talk about it with students, can point students in the right direction. And there's lots of, opportunities to get pretty granular based on students' background, interest, and career goals. So, it's designed to sort of serve up, that content and act as an enabler for career champions.
For us, I think one of the big things that UConnect has done is given us the ability to organize things in a way that we have never been able to do before. I really love the communities in UConnect. So on the Career Services website, we have industry communities, we have affinity group communities, and we have how-to communities, right? So learning about resumes and cover letters and networking and interviewing. We have always been heavily invested in the near 2 decades I've been at Career Services at Penn. We've been heavily invested in digital resources and having information on the web for people to use whenever they need it. The web changed so much in those 2 decades that I look back on what our website used to be, and just these static lists of links and trying to find things, and it was 10 clicks in. And even all the way up to when we moved to UConnect with a more modern looking website, it was just not dynamic. And the number one thing we would hear from students is there's too much content. I can't digest it all. We would show them something at appointment. They're like, oh, I never knew you found that. But show me where that is again. And you're like, well, you follow these breadcrumbs down this rabbit hole and you'll find it. With UConnect, we've been able to bring everything forward. And it's something that the audience has heard me say several times today. So if I make a video and it's about interviewing for a consulting job, that video gets pushed out everywhere. It's on my YouTube channel, it's on our website, but then it's granular. It's on the interviewing page, it's on the consulting page. And so all of those things come front of mind. So if I'm looking for interview tips, I find it. But if I'm interested in consulting, oh, here's tips about interviewing specifically for consulting, I found it. And so we're really grateful for UConnect for making those sorts of things possible and just rising up the most relevant information and content to our users.
Yeah, I mean, you guys do all the work, and you make it happen. You've done a tremendous job populating the platform with high quality, really valuable content, and the segmentation you mentioned with the communities. You guys do as great a job as any school I've seen in terms of the depth and breadth of content that you're providing, and for all the different backgrounds and interests. So kudos to you and the team.
Well, thank you. And it's something we want to keep growing. And it's something that we want our audience to get involved with. So this is, as we've been teasing all day long, the launch pad for a new Penn Career Champions program that we hope that you'll all participate in. And so we are going to be launching a Career Champions community on the website. Right now, we're going to be previewing it very shortly, and we'll put a link in, and you'll all be sent a link as well. There will be a chance to sign up for the Career Champions newsletter that we're going to be developing. That's going to start going out this summer in preparation for the fall. But as the program grows, we're hoping to do some basic training, some asynchronous training that people can do on their own time to sort of get officially certified as a career champion, and give them a chance to say, I would love to be featured in X, Y, and Z community. So again, for me, with my background, I would definitely love to be a career champion on the performing arts page, on the media, entertainment, and journalism page. Joseph has a background in science, he'll probably be on the life science page. David, we could put you on the technology page. There's so many opportunities for people to become connected with students who share their interests and their backgrounds. And that's one of the things I'm most excited about. So we really hope that everybody will join us on this journey and participate to the level that they're willing.
Yeah, I mean, signing up for the Career Champion newsletter at a minimum, it just delivers important, timely resources and events and programs to your inbox. You can share those with students, and again, the sort of frequency of new content coming from the Career Center is unique, and so to sort of have that at your fingertips, I think just better prepares you to support students and set them up for success. So I love what you're doing, and I think it's a no-brainer to sign up for the Career Champions
Well,
program.
thanks, David. And some of the things that you can expect from the newsletter, as David said, there's always something new in career service. There's a new job being posted every minute, right? But we're going to keep you up to date on events, on new resources that you can share with your students, and sort of trends that are happening in the career space, so that you can be well informed about what's going on when you have these sorts of conversations. I'm going to share my screen quickly so we can see a little preview of the community. There's not much there now, but to give you a sense, but perhaps you'll see your own face. This great photo from one of our university life meetings earlier in the year, and just some basic information about what we've been talking about today, some of our plans moving forward, of course, the chance to sign up for our newsletter. And if you were in Joseph and I's session earlier this afternoon, we highlighted the top 10, but really 15 resources on the Career Services website. They're all shared right here, as well as some videos aimed at our faculty and staff. And the videos from today will also be posted on this channel when they are edited and ready to go. I'm going to put the link in the chat, but you'll all receive it as well at the conclusion of today's panel. We'll also be sending out a short survey about today's conference. I hope you will all answer a very quick 3-question survey, give us some feedback so we know if we're on the right track and what you'd like to see at next year's conference. I'm now going to open it up to the floor. If anyone has any questions for myself, my career services colleagues, or David, we would be happy to answer them. While people are formulating their questions, David, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I'm just, I was looking at your site earlier and, really appreciated the variety of resources and content that I think historically not all lived in career services, right? Like LinkedIn Learning, for example, I noticed, and others. And I think that just like all career conversations, can't happen in the career center, all career resources can't be those coming from career services. So, there is a, guests icon in the top right-hand corner of Michael and Barb's website. And, if it's part of the plan, would encourage folks to submit ideas and resources, opportunities, advice, and contribute to the great sort of knowledge base that the career services team is building. The greater diversity in perspectives and ideas, the more likely we are to serve more students. So if you have resources, would encourage you all to share those with the career office.
Yes, thanks for that, David. We absolutely would welcome that. We don't know what we don't know, right? So if there are great resources, if you are looking at our website and you're looking at a community that you're interested in, you go, oh, what would be great here, and it's not here, let us know. Use the guest form or just shoot me an email and let us know. We have a whole category of resources that are just called resources at Penn, because of course Penn has so many student supports and resources and opportunities. So if you have something that's yours and you want it out there, please let us know and we'll make sure it's tagged appropriately. Joseph, I see your camera's back on. Do you have some closing thoughts or a question?
Well, I mean, my closing thoughts are to thank everyone who's been involved in this whole session and whole day for being part of this. Even if you are not a career champion or have no interest, just being and absorbing this information is helpful to our mission as a whole, right? You don't know how that's subconsciously going to affect how you engage with someone in the future. And that's a wonderful, planned or unplanned happenstance in terms of what that is. I guess the question that I had was sort of, it's never easy to say in this current economy or in this current worldview, because the world keeps changing dramatically and shifting in different areas. But as we think about a Career Champions Conference, is there any thought about how the current state of the world around us should affect how we do it? Or does it not matter, right? Does the Career Champions initiative look the same regardless of what the world looks like? Or is there something right now in the world that should inform how we are thinking about this? And I guess, David, that's sort of a question for you.
I think a Career Champions program is even more important in a world that is dynamically changing seemingly every day, because the people who work in the career office can't possibly have perspectives on everything that's happening, right? So it's really important to sort of marry things that are happening out there in the world with sound career advice. For example, artificial intelligence is a topic of conversation that keeps getting louder and louder and louder, and rightfully so. And so the ability for somebody in the computer science or engineering department that thinks about that technology all the time and its applications, their perspective combined with resources and insights from the career services office can help really transform a student's journey, right? So I think as the world changes, you want people's perspectives on those things to be included in that career conversation. And so going beyond the career services staff and the four walls, I think becomes even more critical.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that.
And I saw, Joseph, I saw that you did a presentation on Chat GPT earlier.
Yes, and just a reminder to everyone, I'm not a robot, despite the rumors that have been put around there. But yeah, so you know, it's a great tool. It's something that will keep changing very quickly, right? So it emerged out of nowhere, and then 5 years from now, who knows what that will be. So to your point of things that change beyond our ability to sort of always keep up on the cutting edge of that, that's a very relevant point, I think.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check out the recording. But was it about how students can use it, or how faculty and staff can? What was the very quick overview?
Well, so it was a focus on how one can leverage it for one's own professional and career development, one being a staff or just a student. It doesn't really matter, but it's sort of the idea that, what is it and how can you leverage the sort of the Q&A and the question and answer and the sort of the iterative approach that is very different from saying, I'm going to go to Google, I'm going to look up feedback on how to put a resume together, right? Where you just come across the static content. So it's how to ask questions and do that. I mean, it was hopefully helpful to people just to sort of give everyone the opportunity to see the different ways that you can engage with that tool.
Yeah, that's great. And the recording will be on the website, Michael?
Absolutely.
Nice. Looking forward to hearing your perspectives, Joseph.
All right, everybody. I want to thank David so much for spending time with us, for being a great partner. UConnect supports us in so many ways, from basic tech support to always being a soundboard to bounce ideas off of. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate all of you in the audience, and we look forward to strengthening our relationship with you through the Career Champions program. So look in your email later today and sign up for that newsletter. Joseph, thank you for organizing today. Barb, thanks for your leadership. And everyone, have a great rest of the day and a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.